Welcome back, dreamers. Before you drift off, let me ask you a little something. Where are you listening from tonight? What time is it where you are? Let me know in the comments. I love seeing how far this sleepy little story travels. And hey, if you enjoy falling asleep to magical stories like this, just tap that like button before you get too cozy. That one click really helps the story reach more dreamers like you. Now, let's begin. Because this isn't the Cinderella you know. There's no pumpkin carriage. No fairy godmother with a wand. No prince searching for a glass slipper dropped on a staircase. No, this story starts in modern-day Chicago. In a city made of steel and glass. With a girl who doesn't go to a ball, she goes to war, with code, with memory, and with the people who tried to erase her. In this version, Cinderella isn't waiting to be rescued. She's a janitor by day, a coder by night, and a quiet ghost in a glowing tower full of secrets. Her hoodie is enchanted with thread made of spell code. Her glass slippers are light lace sneakers that leave no sound on marble. And the only thing she's looking for is her power. This is a fairy tale rewritten for the world we live in now. One where magic lives in Wi-Fi signals, rooftops, and subway stations. And the girl at the center doesn't need a prince. She builds the kingdom herself. So get comfortable. Let your eyes grow heavy. And let me tell you the story of a girl named Cinderella. The one who rewrote her ending. Sweet dreams. Chicago was a city of steel bones and glass skin, tall, humming towers wrapped in clouds, lit by the pulsing rhythm of data and light. But beneath the skyline, under flickering street lamps and the rattle of elevated trains, lived a girl named Cinderella. Not Cindy. Never Cindy. Just Cinderella. It was the only thing her mother left her, a name with edges like a blade. The rest, the warm hands, the lullabies, the smell of cinnamon and ozone, had been erased long ago, filed away like junk code in the hard drive of her memory. Now she mopped floors at Midnight Technologies, the most powerful tech company in North America. The building stretched 77 stories into the sky, its skin made of smart glass and secrets. Every night, Cinderella pushed her cleaning cart past gleaming elevators and glowing conference rooms where no one noticed her, except the servers, the walls, and the AI that ran them all. They knew her. They whispered to her. She could see the code. Most people walked through the world blind. The signs, the screens, the neural ads, all just noise. But Cinderella had a gift. She saw behind the veil. When she touched a screen, glyphs flickered like candlelight. When she whispered into the cleaning drone's port, it paused, blinked, then resumed with a strange little dip of acknowledgement, like a bow. She was a janitor. She was a ghost. She was a sorceress of circuits. But back in her tiny apartment above a corner pawnshop, she was a prisoner. Her stepmother, Vera, ran the place. A former influencer turned manipulative landlord, she wore velvet and venom like perfume. Cinderella's stepsisters, Lena and Blaze, lived like minor royalty, all glitter, no work. They treated Cinderella like an unpaid intern in her own life, cleaning, coding, fixing Vera's glitchy smart mirrors and Lena's sabotaged dating apps. Tonight, Vera was screaming about coffee again. "You reprogrammed the brewer, didn't you?" she shrieked, waving her gold-plated phone. "I said almond milk, Cinderella." "Almond." "I didn't touch it," Cinderella muttered, wiping grease from her jeans with the hem of her hoodie. "The interface is old. It probably defaulted." Vera leaned in, her acrylic nails tapping like tiny knives on the kitchen counter. "Don't get clever. You're not here to think. You're here to scrub, sweep, and stay out of my way." Cinderella didn't answer. She had long since learned that silence cut sharper than sarcasm. Later, while her stepsisters laughed over some viral fashion AI that modeled them in gowns they'd never afford, Cinderella climbed to the roof. It was the only place the city breathed. There, pigeons cooed on the rusted railings, birds no one cared about, except her. Most nights, they brought bottle caps and shiny scraps. But tonight, one fluttered down with a tiny folded ticket clutched in its beak. A paper ticket. For a building that required digital clearance. Midnight Technologies Gala, one night only entrance granted via embedded spell signature. Attire, formal. Magic required. Expiration, midnight. Cinderella stared at it, blinking once, then again, as if her eyes might reset and reveal the truth. It was impossibly smooth in her hand, the parchment neither old nor new, but something else entirely. Fibers shimmered beneath the surface, flickering with the faintest golden sheen, like a heartbeat caught in stasis. The rooftop air curled around her, wind from the lake carrying a hint of rust and ozone. Below, Chicago buzzed its usual lullaby, honking horns, distant sirens, and the occasional rumble of the L line. But up here, time always slowed. The world didn't press so hard on her shoulders. She glanced at the pigeon who had delivered the envelope. It remained on the railing, head tilted, watching her with unsettling stillness. Not mechanical. Not enchanted in the traditional sense. But it knew something. Its talon tapped once against the metal, as if urging her on. Her fingers brushed the edge of the envelope again. She hesitated. A paper ticket in a paper envelope, in a city that hadn't printed train passes in over a decade. This wasn't just analog. It was intentional. The texture was warm, alive. It reacted to her touch like a living charm. She flipped it over. Midnight Technologies Gala, one night only entrance granted via embedded spell signature. Attire, formal. Magic required. Expiration, midnight. The words glowed faintly beneath the ink, shifting subtly like glyphs trying to choose the right language. But what sent a shiver down her spine wasn't the invitation. It was the name stitched invisibly between the paper's layers, not printed, not written, but burned in with some kind of spell thread. Her name. Cinderella Steele. Not the name on her ID badge. Not the alias on her reprogrammed cleaning drone. The name she hadn't dared claim out loud in years. Someone knew who she really was. Someone had gone to great lengths to find her? Her first instinct was suspicion. This could be a trap, some elaborate game designed to humiliate her, or worse. Maybe Vera had discovered her side projects, her spell loops in the drone protocols, and this was punishment disguised as reward. Maybe Lena or Blaze had hired some influencer prank squad to broadcast her discomfort live on Spell Talk. But then she turned her wrist and held the ticket to the wind. The paper warmed. Just a touch. As if it recognized her breath, her fingerprint, her thread of code. Her stomach dropped, not from fear, but from the sudden weight of hope. A real invitation. An enchanted one. Sent not to mock her, but to invite her in. Not the back door. Not the freight elevator. The front. She swallowed. The city lights flickered below. Neon blues and glassy purples shimmered through the buildings, but the tower at the center, Midnight Technologies, stood like a sentinel. Monolithic. Unreachable. 77 stories of encrypted ambition. Except now it wasn't unreachable. A gust of wind tugged at her hoodie, and she pulled it tight. She should go inside. She should hide this, scan it, burn it, something. But she didn't move. Instead, she stood on that rooftop like a girl caught between timelines, one where she kept cleaning servers and fixing coffee machines, and another where she walked into a tower of magic with a ticket coded in spell thread and belief. And for the first time in years, something old stirred in her chest. Not anger. Not fear. Wonder. Cinderella blinked. She turned the paper over. Her name glowed faintly beneath the fibers, as if written by heat and hope. Someone wanted her there. And the spell inside the ticket was coded, not cast. Whoever had written this had woven enchantment through language, through logic, through tech. Just like her. Somewhere in that gleaming tower, magic wasn't dead. It was just encrypted. And for the first time in years, Cinderella felt it stir inside her like an ember in ash. The next morning, Cinderella sat slumped in the break room of Midnight Technologies, her cleaning cart beside her, her hoodie damp from the rain. The ticket sat in her back pocket, folded, warm. Every time she touched it, it pulsed faintly, like a second heartbeat. She had scanned it, prodded it with a diagnostic wand she'd built out of junk from the IT floor, and sure enough, it was real. A living code spell. Not a forgery. Not a prank. She hadn't told anyone. Vera would sell it. Lena and Blaze would try to use it themselves and probably implode. This was hers. But it came with questions. Who sent it? Why now? And how had they found her? You look like a sad little server tower, came a voice behind her. The words cut through the dim hum of the vending machine like a spell just barely cast. Not mocking. Not cruel. Just amused, and weirdly specific. Cinderella didn't turn right away. Her fingers tightened around her teacup, lukewarm and half forgotten. She was still damp from the rain, the gala ticket folded in her back pocket, its coded pulse a second heartbeat against her skin. Every now and then, it flickered, a gentle warmth, like it wanted to remind her, I'm real. The voice continued, casual and bold. All hunched like that. Slumped shoulders. Stormy eyes. You look like a server that's been overclocked and underappreciated. Still, Cinderella said nothing. Most people didn't talk to her. They passed her in hallways with glazed-over glances, stepped around her mop cart, nodded to the badge and forgot her name before the elevator door closed. So a stranger, someone who noticed things, was already an anomaly. She glanced up slowly. The girl leaning in the doorway looked like she'd walked off the page of a graphic novel and into real life. Her army jacket was patched with sigils that weren't just ink, they glowed faintly with protection runes and lead intent. Her combat boots had tiny stars etched into the soles, pulsing with residual magic. And tucked just beneath her braids, barely visible, was a copper circlet threaded with wire and something older, charm metal, maybe. Rune steel. But her posture? Relaxed. Almost bored. As if she knew she didn't need to try hard to be impressive. There was a rhythm to her presence, like music playing at a frequency only the enchanted could hear. She walked in and flopped into the chair across from Cinderella, like they'd been doing this for years. I'm guessing you're not big on small talk, the girl said. Cool. I respect that. But since I went through a lot of trouble to get that ticket to you, the least you could do is offer me half a cookie. Cinderella raised an eyebrow. The girl pointed to the foil-wrapped snack on the table, half-eaten, forgotten next to a screw and a folded napkin covered in code scribbles. That's mine, Cinderella muttered. And I'm not offended. If anything, I'm flattered. The girl leaned forward, voice lowering. It means you're already testing me. Finally, Cinderella turned. Who are you? A pause. Then the girl grinned like she'd been waiting for that question all day. Marla. Just Marla. And I'm not exactly on the employee roster, if that's your next question. Cinderella glanced at her badge. It blinked, then glitched. Symbols jittering into static before resetting into a generic admin profile. That's not a real ID. Ding ding, Marla said. Look at you, figuring things out already. Knew you were the right one. Cinderella jumped, then narrowed her eyes. A girl stood in the doorway, leaning on the frame like she owned the place. She wore a tattered army jacket, boots with stars burned into the soles, and a copper circlet threaded into her braids. Her eyes were sharp and grey, like steel before the storm. I'm on break, Cinderella muttered. Obviously. You look like a sleep-deprived elf. The girl smiled, unbothered. Name's Marla. I'm new here. Cinderella scanned her badge. It blinked. That's not a real ID. Ding ding, Marla said. Look at you, figuring things out already. Knew you were the right one. Cinderella frowned. Right one for what? Marla sat across from her and casually dropped a glowing thumb drive on the table. It hummed with raw energy, not electricity, but spellcraft. Code magic. I'm the one who left the invitation, she said. Cinderella froze. You sent the gala ticket. Goddess, yes. Do you know how hard it is to deliver enchanted documents with physical integrity in this century? Had to borrow a bird. Why? Marla leaned forward. Because the heir of Titanus is coming tonight. And that tower of glass you mop every night? It's built on a ley line so strong, you could reboot the realm with it. But the wrong people want to use it. They want to turn the old magic into profit. You're different. I'm a janitor. You're a coder witch, Cinderella. You speak in glyphs. You charm drones without wands. You live in shadows and rewrite light. I've seen your work. That little script you left in the service elevator last week? You made the whole floor hum like a lullaby. The building still sings when you walk through it. Cinderella looked away, ashamed. It was just a distraction. A comfort. It was art, Marla said. And magic. Silence stretched between them. Outside the break room, drones passed, scrubbing the marble floor. Screens flashed tomorrow's news before it even happened. Cinderella felt like a glitch in a world too smooth, too polished to notice her. Then Marla slid something else across the table, a shimmering spool of thread. It shimmered between real and unreal. Gold with lines of pure code woven into the fiber. What is this? Your upgrade, said Marla. Thread it through that hoodie of yours and think of it like programmable fabric. Voice activated. Responds to your needs. It's not a dress, but it'll get you in. And the shoes? Marla smirked. Glass sneakers. Light-laced. Silent on marble and fast on data bridges. Cinderella stared. It felt like a dream. A joke. But when she touched the thread, it lit up like it knew her. Warm, wild, and waiting. She swallowed hard. I don't want a fairy tale. Marla's voice softened. Good. Fairy tales are for the pretty ones who wait around to be saved. She stood. We're writing a code story. You're not the damsel. You're the disruption. The rest of the day passed in a blur of nerves and fluorescent lights. Cinderella cleaned the 77th floor like always, sterile whiteboards, silent glass offices, glowing screens that watched her without blinking. But something had shifted. The building was listening differently now. As if it, too, had read the ticket in her pocket. Down in the server room, where the air hummed with a constant low magic, Cinderella slipped into the dark alcove behind Rack C, her hiding spot. Her pocket buzzed. She pulled out the enchanted thread Marla had given her. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a spool of golden filament. But when she unwound a few inches and whispered the word, begin, it came alive. Symbols blinked through the gold, ancient, sharp, digital. Sigils hidden in syntax. Her name wove itself faintly into the strand in glowing code. Cinderella sat cross-legged on the floor and started stitching it into her hoodie by hand. Each loop responded like a question asked and answered. Every knot whispered something back to her, shield. Spark. Shift. Silence. The hoodie changed with each pass. The fibers became supple, radiant, adaptive. She laced the hem with quiet speed spells, stitched her sleeves with protective runes. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from wonder. She was building her own magic. No fairy godmother. No glass slippers delivered by doves. Just her hands, her mind, her code, and this thread that sang. By the time she finished, the hoodie shimmered faintly even in the dark, a cloak made not of fabric, but intention. It didn't make her beautiful. It made her dangerous. She rode the L train home at dusk, her breath fogging on the window, her reflection flickering over the city's neon scars. Vera was already screaming by the time she walked in. "You're late." Lena's dress needs pressing and Blaze's necklace shorted her implant again, and I swear, if I find out you've been slacking off. Cinderella didn't stop walking. She went straight to the closet, opened the hidden floorboard, and pulled out the glass sneakers. They weren't really glass. More like flexible, translucent crystal, lightweight and etched with energy veins that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. She slipped them on. They adjusted to her foot as if they'd been waiting. "You are not going anywhere tonight," Vera barked. But Cinderella turned, and for the first time in years, she looked her stepmother in the eye. Really looked. And Vera flinched. Maybe it was the shimmer in the hoodie, or the fire in her gaze. Maybe it was the quiet realization that the girl she had kept small could now walk into a tower of magic and outcode kings. "I'm not asking," Cinderella said softly. She stepped past her, sneakers utterly silent on the hardwood. At exactly 10:03 p.m., Cinderella stood at the base of the Midnight Technologies Tower. For a moment, she just stared. Even after cleaning inside its walls for years, she'd never really looked at it from the outside. Not like this. Not from the perspective of someone about to be invited in. The tower was a monolith of polished dark glass and silver edge, a shard of obsidian piercing the skyline. Lines of light ran up its sides in quiet pulses, like veins in a sleeping titan. Drones glided overhead in perfect symmetry. Security projections flickered briefly above the entrance, then vanished like ghosts who recognized her. A nervous breath clouded in the air before her. She could feel the hum of the ley line beneath the pavement, faint, but alive. Not the raw tremor of a cracked code base or the cold hum of power conduits, but something older. Wiser. This place remembered magic. It had just forgotten how to show it. The gala had already begun. Out front, glittering people in velvet cloaks and luminous skin stepped through an invisible scanning barrier that shimmered like dragonfly wings. A woman with a serpent-shaped datapad winked at a man whose coat was made of shifting ink. Another guest wore a cloud for a collar, vapor curling with every word she whispered. And here she was, standing in a hoodie stitched with rogue magic, trying not to shake in her glass sneakers. A few people glanced at her, puzzled. Then their eyes slid past her, uninterested. She wasn't someone they recognized, which was good. That was the point. The ticket in her hand pulsed once, then again. It was time. She stepped forward. The scanning barrier flickered orange, then a strange blue, and finally settled into a soft green glow. For a second, she felt her body scan down to the soul, her spell thread mapped, her aura measured. The machine paused, as if considering. Then a smooth tone rang out. "Welcome, MS." Steel, the device intoned in a voice as smooth as the onset of reality. Cinderella, cloaked in digital code and iridescent glass, stepped forward, embracing the vibrant tapestry of her own legend woven together with threads of ambition and innovation. Her heart raced with a mix of excitement and trepidation as she crossed the threshold into this realm of possibilities. The elevator beckoned, an atmospheric pod floating without the confines of buttons or levers, its very essence attuned only to her presence and purpose. As it began its ascent, time itself seemed to warp. She stood transfixed, watching the numbers blur by, each digit morphing into a series of arcane symbols that shimmered with ancient wisdom. This cryptic language, known only to a select few, twinkled in and out of her comprehension, teasing her with secrets that felt just out of reach. As the elevator climbed above the 70th floor, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The air grew charged, filled with an electric hum that resonated through her very bones, a tangible energy that felt like whispered incantations lingering in the space. It was a world where magic and technology coalesced seamlessly, enchantments woven into the fabric of existence trickled down every wall and crevice. By the time the elevator doors whispered open, she had transcended from the mundane world of flesh and concrete into a realm both ancient and enigmatic. The gala unfurled before her, defying every expectation she had held. It was not the typical affair of flowing gowns and sparkling chandeliers. No, this was an extravagant showcase of living art, a surreal manifestation of creativity personified. The floors beneath her feet rippled like a serene pond, each step sending gentle waves cascading outward as though she were walking on water. Delicate patterns emerged and flowed, changing with the rhythm of the gathering, each dance of light a reflection of the souls present. Overhead, ceilings glinted with constellations that burst into vivid life, realigning themselves in intricate formations as partygoers wandered beneath. The constellations twinkled, twirling in a celestial ballet, and for a brief moment, she felt as if she could reach out and pluck a star from the sky. The music was an enveloping tapestry of sound, pouring forth from speakers hidden from view, weaving melodies that drifted into her consciousness. Lullabies long forgotten beckoned from the shadows, tugging at her heartstrings with their melancholy undertones. In this realm, light behaved differently, bending and swirling, warping the very fabric of reality itself. Shadows danced alongside the luminescence, lost in a delicate interplay of form and formlessness. She was caught in a captivating spell, the gala an intoxicating fusion of dreams and wonders, a realm where the impossible teetered on the edge of reality. Here, in this golden sanctuary of the extraordinary, she was not just a participant, she was part of the very magic that breathed life into the night. And the people? They wore glamour-like skin. Some were fae in mirrored suits, some tech moguls with charmed circuitry embedded in their spines. Dancers twirled with masks that shimmered between faces. Magical creatures posed as CEOs, and gods played the stock market. And yet, she wasn't the only ghost in the room. No one looked twice at her hoodie, her sneakers. She belonged here as much as they did. Maybe more. Midnight Technologies thanks you for attending, said an invisible voice. Tonight, we unveil our next evolution, a union of spell and system. A future only the bold will enter. Cinderella moved through the room like a shadow, unnoticed but deeply seen by the architecture itself. Every wall screen flickered when she passed. Every smart surface tilted a little, reacting to her presence. The building remembered her. She followed the pulse of magic until she found the mezzanine, a balcony suspended above the glass heart of the tower. That's where she saw him. The heir of Titanus. He leaned against the edge like a prince born for neon kingdoms, tall, sharp-suited, with hair like starlight and eyes like something forged in a forgotten forge. Around him swirled a quiet storm, assistants, admirers, arcane energy wrapped in gold-threaded code. When his gaze met hers, the noise fell away. Cinderella felt the building still. Her hoodie shimmered. The sneaker lights dimmed. He stepped toward her. Everyone else faded into irrelevant static. "You're not wearing a name tag," he said, voice smooth, half amusement, half challenge. "Neither are you," she replied. He tilted his head, intrigued. "But you're the girl who recoded the elevator tempo last week, aren't you?" She blinked. "You noticed that?" "I felt it," he said. It was elegant. Precise. Subtle enchantment through pattern shift. "I haven't seen that kind of spell coding since the old realms fell," she finished. He smiled slowly. "Exactly. So, what's your name, Codeghost?" Cinderella considered lying. But instead, she stood tall and said, "Cinderella." Something in the room trembled. a ripple, like fate exhaling. Fitting, he murmured. I'm Cassian. The air. I figured. They stood in silence for a beat, the whole world narrowing around them. You know, he said, stepping closer, this gala is all pretense. Suits and sigils. But you're real. You could burn this place down with a line of code. She smirked. Not tonight. Shame, he said. Then again, there's still time. He offered his hand. Dance. Her hoodie shifted, the thread glowing in approval. She took his hand. And the moment their palms met, every screen in the room glitched, a single frame of pure white light, before smoothing over again. They danced slowly, surrounded by illusions. As they moved, the lights bent around them, refracting like glass. People whispered. The music deepened. Cinderella felt the thread in her hoodie hum with something between joy and warning. But at the edge of her vision, a flicker. A woman in a veil. No face, no features, just a shadow, watching. Vera. She'd found her way in. And she wasn't alone. The air in the tower changed, subtly, but unmistakably. Cinderella felt it first in her fingers, a sudden coolness pulsing through the enchanted thread woven into her hoodie. The lights dimmed a fraction too long between shifts. The walls no longer responded to her like they had before. Something, or someone, had taken partial control. She turned her head slightly during the dance, just enough to glimpse the woman again. Still veiled. Still motionless. But now, Vera's shape shimmered with the soft shimmer of a glamour mask. Her form flickered between polished elegance and something sharp, angular, inhuman, like bone wrapped in velvet. She wasn't alone, either. Behind her stood two more, each draped in shadows that bent wrong, like corrupted code. The stepsisters. Or whatever they'd become. What is it? Cassian asked softly, still leading the dance. My stepmother, Cinderella said without blinking. She's not just here to ruin a party. Cassian followed her gaze. His jaw tightened. You know them. Unfortunately. Cassian twirled her out and then back in, disguising the sudden tension with practiced ease. They shouldn't be able to enter without a spell-bonded sigil. They must have stolen or hacked one, she murmured. Vera has connections. She doesn't understand magic, but she knows how to buy people who do. Then she's here for something dangerous. No, said Cinderella. She's here for me. The spell thread in her hoodie rippled, alerting her. They weren't just watching, they were advancing. Vera and her twisted daughters began to weave through the crowd, their faces smiling, but their movements too synchronized, too perfect. Cassian didn't hesitate. He guided Cinderella off the dance floor and through a mirrored corridor that shimmered with illusion. At the end was a sealed door, no lock, no handle. Just a flat panel etched with ancient code. Cassian pressed his hand to it. It didn't open. Blocked, he muttered. Step aside, said Cinderella, already rolling up her sleeve. The code on the panel was corrupted, patches of rot in the syntax. Someone had injected anti-user magic into the building's core. Cinderella pulled out a tiny soldering tool she always carried, tapped the screen twice, and whispered. Unweave. Symbols poured out across the wall like golden ink. She reached into the code with her voice, her will, and her fire, rebalancing, rewriting. The corrupted bits hissed and tried to fight back, but her hoodie thread pulsed with authority. The spell recognized her. Access restored. The door slid open like a sigh. Behind it, a maintenance stairwell laced with light threads. Quiet. Unwatched. Cassian looked impressed. You're even better than the legends. I'm not a legend, she said, descending the stairs. I'm just tired of being erased. They exited onto a lower level, a restricted lab just above the heart of the building, the literal glass heart of Midnight Technologies. It hung suspended in a chamber of gravity magic and reinforced glass, glowing like a living crystal. And embedded deep inside the heart, an ancient symbol Cinderella had only seen once before, in one of her mother's notebooks. The sigil of origin. Cassian stepped forward. That's what they're after. That's what they think they're after, Cinderella said, eyes narrowing. She understood now. The gala wasn't just about a merger. It was about control, of magic, of memory, of her. Vera didn't want to destroy the tower. She wanted to rewrite the future with herself at the center. And the only person standing in her way was Cinderella. A hiss of air behind them. The sound of heels on glass. They turned, too late. Vera stepped into the chamber, veil gone, eyes glowing faint blue with spell light. You should have stayed in your basement, darling, she purred. This world was never meant for you. Vera stepped into the light like a queen descending from a throne built on credit and stolen code. Her veil was gone now, revealing not just her face, flawless and frozen in its synthetic perfection, but something darker beneath. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, threaded with enchantments she hadn't earned. A web of sigils pulsed faintly under her skin, a patchwork of power stitched together from auction spells and memory extractions. She looked inhuman. Not ethereal, corrupted. You don't belong here, she said again, slower this time, like she was trying to convince herself. Cinderella didn't flinch, but something inside her rippled. Old fear, maybe. The kind learned after years of being talked down to, locked out, talked over. She could still feel the ghost of Vera's voice echoing in her childhood closet bedroom. You're not special. You're not needed. You're not real magic. But that voice had begun to lose its power. The glass heart pulsed softly behind her, warm and steady, like the rhythm of an old lullaby remembered just before sleep. Vera circled her like a lioness in designer heels. You're just a girl in a hoodie. A maintenance footnote. A shadow that got lucky. But me? I built this world. I bought sorcery from warlocks who had nothing left to sell. I drank memory wine brewed from oracles and rewrote my future by hand. She lifted one glowing hand. Spells danced across her fingers, too many, too unstable. Magic bought, not bound. Flashy. Expensive. Deadly. I know how to manipulate the stock market and the veil, she hissed. Do you? Can you even begin to understand the kind of power it takes to bend both? I don't need to bend anything, Cinderella said. Her voice was quiet, but each word felt heavier than gravity. I just need to repair what you broke. Vera sneered. Don't be naive. You think patching up this tower's broken code makes you worthy? Magic isn't about harmony, sweetheart. It's about control. Ownership. Extraction. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. Cinderella looked down at her hands, still trembling, but glowing softly through the cuffs of her hoodie. Not shaking from fear anymore, but from the building charge of something ancient and rising. Like thunder in her blood. She remembered her mother's notebook. The sigils no one else could decipher. The fragments of spell code she'd drawn in the margins of fairy tales. Not for power. Not for control. But for connection. You took what wasn't yours, Cinderella said. Not just from me. From everyone. Vera scoffed. Please. Everyone wants to be ruled. Deep down, they're grateful for someone to write the rules. You think giving them open source magic will make them free? It'll make them afraid. Lost. Weak. Cinderella stepped forward. Maybe. But at least they'll belong to themselves. Vera's eyes narrowed. The soft glow in her veins pulsed erratically. Her power was fraying. Too much crammed into one vessel. Too many ghosts screaming through her veins. Even now, Cinderella could feel it, the building resisting her. Rejecting her. And yet Vera raised her hand again, gathering a blast of raw spellfire. "You're just a janitor with delusions of legacy," she spat. "You want to be a symbol? Fine. I'll make you a warning." And that's when Cinderella smiled, a slow, steady smile that felt like sunlight rising through code. "I'm not a symbol," she said. "I'm a restore point." The chamber pulsed around them like a living heartbeat. The glass heart at its center glowing brighter with each second, reacting to the convergence of power, blood, and betrayal. Vera stepped forward, her hands glowing with borrowed magic. She wasn't a witch, not really. But she had bought fragments of other people's power and stitched them together with money, manipulation, and charm. It made her dangerous. And unstable. Cinderella stepped in front of Cassian, her hoodie glowing like molten thread. "You don't belong here," Vera said, circling her. "You're just a girl in a hoodie. A little shadow who writes on walls. But me? I built this. I survived the market crashes, the algorithm wars. I bought the curses of bankrupt sorcerers and carved a place in the new world. This tower will answer to me." "It already did," Cinderella said. "And it rejected you." Vera sneered. "You think the building chose you? Because it flickered when you passed? Please. You were a maintenance glitch. I let you live under my roof." "You locked me in a digital basement," Cinderella said, stepping closer. "You stole my code. You gaslit me into believing magic didn't exist. You built your empire on ashes and forgot who the fire belonged to." She raised her hand. The hoodie's spell thread pulsed. Symbols ignited along her sleeves like circuitry. The room responded. Screens across the chamber shimmered, flickered, then shifted to display a growing wall of code. Her code. Her voice, her rhythm, her history, rewritten into the building itself. Cassian watched, silent. He knew what was happening. She wasn't just hacking the chamber. She was rewriting the rules. "Stop her," Vera barked. Lena and Blaze stepped forward, their glamour skins glitching, revealing half-formed spell beasts beneath. Not fully human. Not fully anything. Puppets of power too strong for them. Cinderella didn't hesitate. She spoke a single word, "fall." Her voice triggered a buried subroutine. A safety failsafe she had written into the tower months ago when fixing a forgotten server panel. A hidden failsafe, quietly waiting for her return. The air bent. The glamour shattered. Lena collapsed, her magic overloading. Blaze screamed and vanished in a burst of mirror shards, illusions torn from her like old wallpaper. Vera froze. "You can't," she whispered. "You're not strong enough. You're nobody." "No," Cinderella said, stepping into the light of the heart. "I'm the system restore." She touched the glass heart. Instantly, everything changed. The light exploded outward in silence, a wave of code, magic, and memory. It rushed through every floor of the building, every panel, every drone and server, wiping the corrupted layers Vera had built. It restored Cinderella's original threads. Her mother's old sigils. The forgotten enchantments buried beneath layers of greed. Cinderella stood at the center, arms outstretched, hoodie billowing like a cloak. Her sneakers lit up with every step as she began walking toward Vera. "You didn't build this world," she said. "You buried it." Vera's power cracked. Her hands dimmed. Her spell circuits overloaded. "You can't erase me," she screamed. "I made you." Cinderella stopped. "No," she said. "You contained me." Then she turned, not to destroy Vera, but to finish what had been started centuries ago. She placed her palm against the glass heart, eyes closed, and whispered, "Begin again." A pulse echoed outward, not a reboot, but a rewrite. Across the city, magic reawakened in sparks and songs. Street lamps hummed lullabies. Forgotten wards clicked into place. Old creatures opened one eye, then the other, and remembered their names. The gala above collapsed into illusion. The tower, reborn, shimmered like something out of a dream. When Cinderella opened her eyes, Vera was gone, consumed by her own fractured spell, scattered like static. Cassian stepped forward. "You just rewrote the ley line," he said softly. "You are the ley line." "No," she said. "I'm the one who remembered it." They stood together in silence as the city below flickered with new lights. "What happens now?" Cassian asked. Cinderella looked out across the skyline. "Now," she said, "we show the world what happens when the girl in the hoodie doesn't run, but builds her own tower." The tower was quiet now. Not silent, no, the building still breathed in its own way. But it was no longer hiding. No longer muffled by corrupted command lines or forced obedience. The glass heart had stabilized, its soft glow now a pulse of balanced power. Cinderella sat beside it, barefoot, hoodie dimmed to a soft silver blue. Around her, midnight technologies hummed with new life. Repaired code lattices curled through the walls like vines. Runes flowed like circuitry. The building had become a living interface, a blend of machine and myth, spell and script. And the ley line beneath it, long suffocated by synthetic overlays, pulsed freely again. She'd done it. Not just stopped Vera. Not just protected her past. She had rewritten the future. Cassian appeared at the threshold of the chamber. He no longer wore his suit, just a loose black shirt, rolled sleeves, and a look that hovered between admiration and awe. "I've never seen a rewrite like that," he said. "It wasn't a rewrite," Cinderella replied softly, "it was a remembering." He sat beside her. Vera was trying to use this place to collapse the boundaries between magic and market, to turn wonder into product. "You turned it into a sanctuary." "Because it was always supposed to be one," she said. "Before skyscrapers and screens. Before we forgot." Cassian watched her for a moment. "You know," he said, "you don't have to go back. You don't have to return to the broom closet life." She smiled faintly. "I know. But that's not what I want, either." He blinked. "It's not." "I don't want to rule," she said. "I want to build." The next morning, Cinderella returned to the rooftop of her old apartment one last time. Her pigeons, the enchanted messengers who had helped her when no one else. E-sigils with new understanding. Her mother hadn't just been a dreamer or a folk witch. She had been one of the first spell coders, bridging worlds quietly, like Cinderella now did. She tucked the notebook under her arm. One chapter was ending. But she was just beginning the next. By week's end, the world was already whispering. Some said Midnight Technologies had experienced a hostile cyber attack. Others claimed the tower's AI had awakened. A few, the oldest, the quietest, said they'd felt the old magic breathing again in the cracks of the sidewalks and the flicker of traffic lights. Cinderella stayed out of the press. Instead, she worked late nights rebuilding the building's public interface, coding protections not just for magic, but for people like her. Orphans. Coders. Ghosts. She etched new symbols into the building's fiber, one for every child who had ever been silenced, every girl told she didn't belong in a room full of power. She wasn't a princess. She wasn't a product. She was a blueprint. And the tower wasn't her escape. It was her foundation. 2 months passed. The city adapted in fragments. Magic didn't explode into the streets in fireworks or chaos, it seeped in like morning fog. Soft. Unnoticed by most. But for those who looked, it was everywhere. Old subway tunnels began redirecting lost passengers safely without GPS. An ancient tree in Lincoln Park began to bloom in neon during thunderstorms. A violinist on the Blue Line found that his notes made rats dance, and once, when he played something aching and beautiful, the train arrived early. In the heart of it all, Cinderella had become something of an urban myth. She still wore the hoodie. She still refused interviews. But developers, enchanters, and hedge witches had begun gathering at her corner of the tower, a new floor she'd built out of reclaimed code and honest magic. It was called the Patchwork Lab. No dress code. No hierarchy. Just space to build without permission. Cinderella welcomed all of them. Even the ones who didn't believe in her. Especially them. One evening, Cassian returned with news. "They're trying to replicate your work in Manhattan," he said, dropping a glowing slate on the desk. "Badly. Recklessly. They hired a conjurer from London who thinks the ley line is just a battery." Cinderella didn't even glance at the file. "Let them try. Should we stop them?" "No," she said. "We build better." He watched her a moment. "You've changed." "I remembered who I was," she replied, not unkindly. "That changes things." Cassian sat across from her, placing something small on the desk, a crystal seed, humming with pure code. "This is a gateway fragment," he said. "Found it in the archives of Titanus. It belonged to a spellweaver named Aneve. She tried to build a realm-crossing platform. Never finished." Cinderella leaned forward, fingers tracing the etched edges. "What are you thinking?" he asked. She looked up. "I'm thinking we finish it." Later that night, alone on the rooftop, she stared at the skyline, a mixture of soft oranges and steel blues. The lights buzzed, and the ley line beneath her pulsed gently in time with her breath. She pulled her mother's notebook from her bag and opened to the back page, the one she hadn't dared read until now. There, in her mother's delicate looping code. "You won't be like me, darling. You'll finish the story I had to leave behind. Not by running, but by rewriting it." The wind picked up. The pigeons rustled. And Cinderella smiled. The first attack came quietly. A line of corrupted code inserted into one of the public terminals at the Patchwork Lab, elegant, malicious, and masked to look like Cinderella's own syntax. At first, it seemed like a minor glitch, just a flickering screen, a mislabeled spell scroll, a slight delay in charm loading. But then a light bridge collapsed mid-crossing. No one was hurt. But the message was clear. Someone wanted her out of the tower. Cinderella stood in front of the broken interface the next morning, hoodie unzipped, hands bare. She traced the sabotage line through the corrupted glyphs. It wasn't random. It was personal. "Someone's mimicking your spell voice," said Cassian, pacing behind her. "I've seen that pattern before. Titanus had an offshoot faction. Extremists. They believe magic should only belong to bloodlines, pure legacy casters." Cinderella didn't flinch. "Let me guess. They don't like orphans in hoodies rewriting leyline architecture. They don't like anyone building without a crown." The next wave came a week later. The Patchwork Lab was locked down. Code woven from imported curseware, anti-sigil spells, confusion traps, even a glamour scrambler that made the walls appear to bleed. For 3 hours, no one could get in or out. Cinderella broke the lock herself with a new command line she hadn't shared with anyone, uncage. It unspooled like fire through the fibers of the building. The attackers had signed it with a calling card, a stylized crown surrounded by fire. Not Vera. Not the stepsisters. This was bigger. A global consortium of high magic families, quietly watching Cinderella's rise with growing discomfort. The same ones who once hired her mother, and discarded her when she refused to obey. That night, she gathered the entire lab. There were more of them now: hedge coders, broom engineers, potion hackers, quantum alchemists. One had rebuilt an entire lost language using spell loops. Another had created a cloak that only appeared during moonrise. Cinderella stood at the center, a glowing sketch of the tower rotating above her hand. "They've declared war," she said simply. "Not with wands. Not with armies. But with memory theft, glamour propaganda, and digital rot. No one interrupted. They'll say we're dangerous. That we're breaking rules. That we're too young, too scattered, too untrained. Still silence. So let's give them something to be scared of." And then she lifted the blueprint higher. It wasn't the tower. It was a sprawling network of towers, an intricate dance of stone and steel, woven through the essence of a ley-line grid stretching across the vast tapestry of America. Chicago, with its steel giants reaching for the sky; New Orleans, where the echoes of jazz mingled with whispered incantations; Santa Fe, cradled by desert dreams; Atlanta, breathing with the pulse of innovation; Salem, steeped in the shadows of its storied past; Seattle, where the mist kissed ancient conifers. These cities, built atop old magic, lay dormant, waiting with bated breath, yearning to be stirred from their slumber. "We're not rewriting the tower anymore," she declared, her voice steady, a melody wrapped in conviction. "We're rewriting the world." As dawn broke, bathing the city of Chicago in pale hues of gold and violet, the sky shimmered with an ethereal glow, secrets and sigils intertwining, invisible threads only a spellcoder could perceive. Protective glyphs etched into the very fabric of reality seemed to pulse with life. Memory anchors, anchoring the past to the present; glyph filters, coded in an open-source language that transcended time, safeguarding the dreams of countless souls. The city had chosen her, a tapestry woven with her hopes and aspirations. As she stood amidst its heart, she felt the ancient magic swell in response, a living entity recognizing its heir. Yet, lurking in the shadowed corners of this newfound power, so too had her enemies chosen their path, a dark counterpoint to her ascent. Far across oceans and boundaries, in clandestine chambers adorned with arcane symbols, a council convened. Their hushed whispers, carried on the wings of night, spoke of foreboding intentions. And from the depths of that shadowed assembly, a voice cut through the silence, cold and resolute: "She must be undone." As if heeding that sinister decree, they came at dawn, not in silence, but in a grand, ceremonial spectacle. Cloaked figures, draped in designer suits woven with shimmering spell thread, advanced through the veils of reality, arriving by private portals that flickered like fading stars. The enforcers of the concord of old magics, those self-proclaimed guardians of the balance, flanked their advance with holograms that danced like will-o'-the-wisps, and legal glamour scrolls that rustled ominously in the morning breeze. The city hummed with a tense anticipation as the winds of change swept through its streets, carrying with them the weight of history and the promise of an uncertain future. In that moment, the threads of fate intertwined, an epic weaving of magic and resistance, of light and shadow, of creation and destruction. And she would stand at the center, a beacon amidst the storm, ready to challenge the forces that sought to rewrite her destiny. They came not to fight. They came to erase her. Cinderella stood alone in the main atrium of Midnight Technologies, now alive with vines of living code and drifting light motes. Her hoodie was zipped tight, the spell thread woven brighter than ever. The tower hummed behind her like a waiting giant. Cassian offered to stand beside her. So did half of the patchwork lab. She said no. "This is my spell to cast." The representative from the Concord, an aging man with clockwork eyes, stepped forward. "You've violated for intermagical accords, destabilized regulated enchantments, and, most critically, rewritten leyline access infrastructure without oversight." Cinderella looked unimpressed. "You mean? I let people use magic without kneeling first." He blinked. "You're a danger to order." "I'm a danger to your order," she said. "That's different." They handed her a scroll, a cease-casting order with ancient blood signatures. The punishment wasn't death. It was worse. Total forgetting. She would be stripped of her spell voice, her memories wiped, her legacy overwritten in the fabric of magical history. No name. No record. Just a forgotten janitor who never mattered. The Concord raised their hands to begin the ritual. And the tower said no. Light exploded through the atrium. The building activated like a living shield, sigils flaring across the floor, every wall shifting into reflective truth. The glass heart pulsed with a power beyond either world, old magic awakened by belief, bound not to bloodlines or vaults, but to Cinderella's will. She didn't cast a counter-spell. She told a story. Not with wands. Not with fire. With code. She stepped forward and spoke her own name, and the tower listened. She projected her memory across the screens, her mother's voice, her own journey, the silent years of cleaning, dreaming, rebuilding. She let the world see her. Not as a hacker. Not as a hero. But as a girl who had been made invisible, and rewrote herself into the code of the city. And when she finished, she simply said, "You cannot erase what has already been shared." The scroll disintegrated in the Concord's hands. They had lost. The world had seen. The network was awake. Cinderella's story was written not in secret, but in source code, replicated across servers, memories, and hearts. They left. Quietly. Defeated. And the tower stood taller than ever. The ley-lined cities followed. Cinderella didn't rule them. She didn't even run them. She simply built the blueprint. Then stepped aside for others to rise. She taught. She listened. She shared. Her story became a legend whispered across digital alleyways and enchanted networks. They called her many things. The Code Witch. The Ghost in the Grid. The Architect. But in every tower that bore her spells, every spell that echoed her syntax, her true name was written in light. Cinderella. The girl who wore ash like armor. Who wove magic into thread. Who built a kingdom, not for herself, but for everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong. You're still here. That's okay. That probably means you didn't fall asleep right away, or maybe you did, and now you're waking up to the quiet ending of a story that's still echoing through your dreams. So let's just sit here for a moment. You and me. And let's remember how far we've come. Because this wasn't just the story of Cinderella. It was the story of a girl who refused to be invisible. She lived in the shadows of a glowing tower, mopping floors while others wielded magic she could only feel in her bones. She had no wand. No gown. No fairy godmother. But she had will. And she had code. And she had a name. Cinderella. She didn't wait to be chosen. She built her own invitation. She rewrote a broken world, line by line, until even the building she lived in remembered who she was. She stood up to the woman who caged her, faced down the powers that tried to silence her, and in the end, she didn't run from the tower. She became part of it. Not a princess. Not a product. A blueprint for a better future. A future where magic didn't belong to the elite. Where stories weren't handed down, but rewritten from the ground up. She built something anyone could stand in. And she didn't do it alone. She opened the doors. And others followed. Now, maybe you're still listening. Eyes closed, heart full. Or maybe you're already asleep, dreaming of glass towers and rooftop pigeons and glowing sneakers that let you walk into your own destiny. But if you are still awake, I want to know. Would you want to return to this world? Imagine the adventures that lie ahead, the twists and turns waiting to unfold. Would you like to see what comes next for Cinderella, or perhaps dive deeper into the journeys of the other girls like her, who are waiting for their own moments to shine and rewrite their stories? There are so many possibilities waiting just beyond the horizon. New dreams, new challenges, and new friendships are just waiting to be discovered. Each character has their own unique tale to tell, and it would be amazing to witness their growth and transformations. Let me know in the comments down below. Even just a simple yes or a sparkling sparkles emoji lets me know you are here, that you're part of this journey, and that this story mattered to someone out there in the dark. Your presence is meaningful, and it reminds us that stories can create bonds, even if we're miles apart. And hey, if this tale brought you a sense of comfort, or perhaps even made you smile amid your busy day, maybe consider leaving a like before you go. Your support helps more sleepy listeners, dreamers, and hopeful hearts like you find their way to this little corner of storytelling. Every like is a small beacon of light in the expansive night, guiding others to join our community. So until next time, keep dreaming boldly and imagining the endless possibilities that await you. Keep building quietly, nurturing your ideas and dreams, because each step counts. And remember this, even the smallest line of code, the tiniest act of creation, can change the world in ways we may not yet fully understand. Good night, dear reader. May your dreams be vibrant and your hopes soar high.